You can't fight Boko Haram. You cannot your citizens to be kidnapped, to be killed, to be molested. Whole villages have been ransacked by Boko Haram. You can't deal with Boko Haram. We're going to move your soldiers to go into Niger to go and fight, to replace the president of Niger. Are you crazy?
After several weeks of continuous discussions and negotiations between the leaders of ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, and the military authorities in Niger, the situation was evolving toward a critical point. The ECOWAS leaders were asserting their readiness to take action, indicating that their standby force was prepared for a potential intervention in Niger. Conversely, the military leaders within Niger were maintaining a firm stance, insisting that negotiations could only proceed if the imposed sanctions were lifted. Additionally, they expressed intentions to bring the former president, Mohammed Bazoum, to trial for treason. As tensions escalated, both sides found themselves at a pivotal juncture, eventually convening at the negotiation table. General Abdourahamane Tchiani, a key figure in the military leadership of Niger, finally engaged with the ECOWAS envoy, led by Omar Toure, the president of the ECOWAS Commission. This envoy was further composed of Abdul Salam Abubakar, Nigeria's former head of state, and the Sultan of Sokoto. The deposed President Mohammed Bazoum was also present during this gathering, and Abdul Salam Abubakar assured that Bazoum was in good health and accompanied by his family. Notably, General Abdul Salam Abubakar withheld any specific details regarding the discussions that transpired during the meeting with General Tchiani, refraining from sharing information when questioned by journalists outside the presidential palace. During this significant meeting, General Tchiani, representing the military leadership of Niger, articulated his strategy and aspirations. He clarified that their objective was not to seize power indefinitely, but rather to establish a transition period that could extend up to 3 years. Tchiani called upon political parties to present their visions for this transition within a month. He also expressed openness to engage in dialogue, on the condition that such discussions genuinely encompassed the hopes and desires of the people of Niger. Importantly, General Tchiani pledged the ECOWAS envoy, indicating that the release of the deposed former president, Mohammed Bazoum, would be considered once the sanctions imposed by ECOWAS were lifted. The crucial question remained whether the ECOWAS leaders would view this offer as a favorable proposition. Considering that the release of Bazoum had been a paramount demand, even international actors like France and the United States had joined in this call. Given the alignment of interests, it seemed logical for ECOWAS to consider accepting the offer to break the deadlock. While the military leaders might have perceived themselves as having an upper hand, the essence of the negotiations was centered on achieving a peaceful resolution rather than a confrontational outcome. Initially, the ECOWAS leaders had insisted on the reinstatement of Bazoum, but their stance later evolved to focus on securing his release. This shift had now been met with a commitment from the military leaders in Niger to release Bazoum, contingent upon the removal of sanctions. However, the specific terms of Bazoum's release remained unclear. There were concerns that he might be subjected to limitations, such as travel restrictions or house arrest. These precautions could potentially prevent Bazoum from leaving the country, thereby minimizing the risk of external intervention. This, in turn, could inadvertently provide the military leaders with a pretext to rally for an invasion, should Bazoum's return be deemed feasible with sufficient protection. The broader concern revolved around the ease of implementing the plan to reinstate Bazoum, even if the military leaders managed to secure the presidential palace. The sustainability of his protection and the feasibility of his return to power remained uncertain. Against this backdrop, the suggestion was put forth that ECOWAS ought to seize the opportunity to pressure General Tchiani into shortening the proposed transition period, thereby facilitating a quicker resolution that could help all parties address their respective internal issues. After the meeting, General Tchiani conveyed a message to the nation. His tone and efforts to galvanize the Nigerian population against an imminent invasion highlighted the military leadership's determination and readiness to confront any potential threats. This sentiment was further bolstered by the notion that in the face of danger, one must respond with resolute action, analogous to a tree that fights against being felled. The military authorities were preparing for an impending showdown by recruiting and training civilians for a civilian defense force, with the underlying purpose of bolstering their defense capabilities in the event of an invasion. Simultaneously, as events unfolded in Niamey, a Russian cargo plane with historical ties to transporting Wagner forces made an unexpected landing in Bamako, Mali. The plane's transit through Syria hinted at a strategic resupply mission for the Wagner forces stationed in Mali, potentially as a response to the escalating situation in Niger. This development underscored the seriousness with which the Russians were approaching the situation, reflecting a deepening concern for the unfolding crisis in the region. The implications of these actions painted a dire picture, with the potential for substantial destruction looming over West Africa if decisive action was not taken promptly. It was evident that the involvement of Wagner forces in Niger could result in catastrophic outcomes. These forces were known for their utilization of overwhelming and heavy-handed tactics, often leaving a trail of devastation in regions where they operated. Past instances in the Central African Republic and Ukraine showcased the destructive potential of such intervention. The appeal was made for foreign powers to refrain from utilizing West Africa as a theater for proxy conflicts, emphasizing the need to prevent the escalation of violence. In tandem with these developments, a light attack and reconnaissance aircraft journeyed from Burkina Faso to Niamey, aligning with the promise of support from both Burkina Faso and Mali in assisting Niger should an invasion occur. This display of commitment underscored the gravity of the situation and the collective effort of neighboring countries to safeguard the region. In conclusion, the intricate negotiations between ECOWAS and the military leadership of Niger were characterized by escalating tensions, evolving demands, and shifting strategies. The possibility of a peaceful resolution hinged on the delicate balance of interests, diplomacy, and regional cooperation. The potential involvement of external actors and the looming specter of violence underscored the urgency for swift and effective action to avert a catastrophic outcome for West Africa. Let's delve into some of the statements made by the leader in Niger. He highlighted several key points during his address. Firstly, he asserted that the imposed sanctions were illegitimate and ran counter to the principles of the free movement of goods and services within the ECOWAS region. He described the sanctions as inhumane, causing essential products, including vital medical supplies, to perish at borders. The interruption of the electricity supply, resulting in hospital casualties, was another grievance he brought up. He characterized the sanctions not as a means to find solutions, but as a deliberate attempt to weaken and humble the Nigerian populace. He accused external forces of attempting to impose their will, urging acceptance of conditions that contradicted the core values of the Nigerian people. This, he contended, amounted to isolating Niger at a time when solidarity was needed to combat insurgency and insecurity. He cautioned against disregarding the potential broader consequences of an invasion of Niger. He emphasized that such an action would have ripple effects across the region, potentially undermining regional stability. He highlighted Niger's role as a buffer against insurgent expansion, stressing that its fall could open the floodgates to wider conflict. He pointed out that numerous visionary leaders and nations, both within and outside ECOWAS, had voiced their opposition to intervention that could trigger unpredictable outcomes. He dismissed external portrayals of Niger's leadership as caricatures that didn't reflect the actual situation on the ground. In a heartfelt conclusion to his address, he acknowledged the harrowing realities of war and the sentiment shared by his compatriots. He expressed the anguish of West Africans at the prospect of turning against former allies who had united to secure the region. This emotional plea resonated with neighboring countries, explaining the support extended by Mali and Burkina Faso, while Chad refrained from endorsing military intervention. He underscored that the camaraderie shared by Niger, Chad, Nigeria, and Cameroon during joint anti-insurgency efforts could be jeopardized by forcing soldiers to combat their brothers. He contrasted this reality with sporting events and highlighted the profound gravity of real-life conflict. Niger had been witnessing a wave of soldier resignations, raising concerns about the readiness of their armed forces. Around 1,000 soldiers had reportedly left the service within a year, prompting the Nigerian army to tighten its discharge policies. The reasons for these resignations range from loss of interest to low morale, indicative of underlying issues within the military establishment. Corruption within the army was often cited as a major catalyst for departures, with allegations that funds failed to reach frontline personnel. Recent adjustments to ration allowances were seen as attempts to address this concern, although these adjustments were meager compared to politicians' allowances. The departure of underpaid and disheartened soldiers could pose security risks, including leaks of sensitive information to adversaries. Niger's significance in the fight against insurgency was underscored by its geographical position. The nation acted as a barrier, hindering the flow of weapons from Libya into Nigeria. Its collaborative efforts with neighboring countries against insurgency demonstrated its regional commitment. However, despite collective endeavors, the security challenge remained daunting. Military intervention in Niger was feared to exacerbate the situation, a sentiment shared by northern Nigerian senators concerned about their region's security. Reflecting on Niger's response to ECOWAS sanctions, Burkina Faso extended assistance by providing essential supplies to alleviate the impact of the sanctions. This humanitarian gesture was juxtaposed against the potentially dire consequences of economic sanctions, particularly on Nigerian businesses facing losses and financial strain due to disrupted imports. The plea was for ECOWAS leaders to recognize the offer presented by the Nigerian leader and swiftly lift the sanctions. Following this, they could exert pressure to accelerate the transition process towards civilian rule. If you are watching our video for the first time, I suggest you subscribe to our channel for more interesting and captivating information. Turn on the bell notification to get alert on all our recent posts so you won't miss out any. Share your thought in the comment section and share these videos with family, friends, and concerned Nigerians. Thanks for watching.